Well, Sirpreme, Jake.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome, brother.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome. It's awesome to have you in here, man. And when initially, we'll say shout out to Jono.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Jono.
Thank you, Jono. You're a legend. When he put me in touch with you, I hadn't even heard your music at this point in time. And then I started listening to it and I was like, who knows what I'm gonna hear. Like, I hope I like it.
Yeah.
And then I was lying in bed, me and my partner were lying in bed and I'm like, oh, fuck, I'll just chuck it on and check it out. And as soon as I put it on, I was like, this is sick.
Yeah, thank you.
Man, thank you. Like, I actually really love your music. And I don't want to butcher it with trying to classify it too much, but in terms of the lo-fi beat feel situation, the soulful situation that was going on.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, man.
No, I appreciate it, man.
Creates such a vibe.
Yeah, I think it was like, it wasn't the route that I thought I was going to go down. I mainly started doing it because I wanted to I used to, like, back in the day, I used to just listen to like your standard radio stations and they always had these like DJs on there and they were playing mashups and I was like, oh, I just want to make mashups. Yeah, and so that
just join together all your favorite songs.
Just grab some acapellas. Not even that, just grab an acapella and grab an instrumental, blend them together, make something cool.
Yeah.
But somehow fell into really liking and appreciating lo-fi music, which I never loved and when I started. And it was same with the whole DJing aspect of things. I never loved sounds that weren't familiar to me. Like, I listen to a broad scope of music, but there's something in every song that I listen to that encapsulates who I am. So whether it could be just like a nice saxophone playing, it's real warm and it's really calming. But then other times, like there'll be a trap song or a drill song, and I'm just like, it's the approach by the artist is what captures me. But they're all very similar. Like, they've all got. It probably sounds strange to people, but if you actually listen to everything I listen to, whether it's country, like a massive country music buff, I can't resonate with the new style of country. I struggle really hard with it. I love that old, like these like Jim Croce's and Alan, even old Alan Jackson and like Willie Nelson and, you know, the Highwaymen, that type of music, because it just tells a story. And I find lo-fi music tells quite a beautiful story, but it's all about how you structure it.
Well, it creates such an atmosphere, and I guess everybody loves music in their own way.
Yeah.
I absolutely love music so much, and I use it to be able to cultivate my environment as much as I possibly can. You know, I feel like it's one of the best ways to be able to set the scene for whatever situation and how you want to feel in that situation.
Yeah.
And your type of music, it I don't know, it's set. I get this feeling, you know, where like if you're in a movie or you imagine yourself in a movie, or like when a good track comes on and it paints that feeling. Yeah, that paints that feeling for you, like you're in a situation and it's a good situation.
Yeah, cool.
And having that feel and being able to chuck it on, it's impressive, man. I don't know how people make music like that.
To be honest, I was always very music minded, but not a musician. Like, I started doing guitar in like year 7 because we had to. And I always wanted to do it, but like when you're younger and you don't realize till you're older, but sort of, you know, financially, your parents might not be in a position to. And it was always a thing of, oh, well, it'll just be a phase, you know, because I played a lot of sport and stuff. It was always sport was my thing, but music was the thing that got me through the sport. Like, and so many memories with music. But yeah, it just, a few people have said to me, like, you've just got the ear for it. And that's the main part, but it's about hearing things and making them work, I suppose. And yeah, it took a while, because when I started doing it, I had this big grand plan. It was like, I'm going to like hustle so hard. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to just keep putting tracks up on streaming platforms, and I'm just going to feed people like my music, and they're going to have to love it. And I was so against the new school music. It was all like old school hip hop. Like, well, so when I say music, I mean in the hip hop genre that I make. It was just like, I don't like all the, you know, the little rhymes that I think Drake says it in a song or something. He says like all the rhymes the kids are doing, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't about it. And then it just grew on me because that was a whole nother feeling when I was went down the route of DJing. It brought me a whole different feeling. So when I play like that new school stuff, I'm just like, I'm amped up, I'm hyped, the crowd's going nuts, I've got a meter man out of the palm of my hand, I can play anything.
So there's a time and place for it.
There's a time and place, 100%. So with making the lo-fi stuff, that to me encapsulates like kind of like you were saying before, like a feeling, and it's got a lot of cinematic properties. That's why I started making it. Like I would love to be one of those people or a fly on the wall and sit in when someone's doing the music number for a film and just see how they actually come up with the ideas. So like there's so many wonderful scores of music in films, but how they curate and handpick that is mind-blowing to me. And so
it blows. Yeah, that absolutely blows my mind how out of everything that you could possibly choose from, you choose that one thing to capture that emotion. Like,
yeah. And especially when it's even when it's a film, like one of my favorite films is Scarface. And I love the soundtrack. It's like unreal soundtrack. But how did they pick music from that, like that sort of time and that space and that vibe of that film, and how did they pick these songs that work so well? And make it like I hear a song and I'm like, oh yeah, like it makes me think of like the scene in Scarface. That's the beauty of music, and then like the lo-fi stuff just makes me really think about like that. To me, it's thinking music. Like you need to get something done. You don't want someone like yabbing in your ear, singing or spitting bars or singing. You just want something that's so simple and it just like soothes you, you know, especially if you're doing a task that's like quite tedious, like whether it's paperwork that you need to get done for work or whether it's a essay you're writing or whatever. You can sit there and just put lo-fi on and it will just calm you. I think it makes me think clearer as well.
Yeah, you're so right. It does have that cinematic feel. Like when I chuck on your music and for example, I'm sitting down and I'm like editing a podcast or something like that. Potentially, if I'm just editing with nothing on, I'm kind of there going, this is shit. Like this isn't
going through the motions.
I'm going through the motions. Yeah. This isn't fun. But with a soundtrack happening, you suddenly have that feeling of like, oh, if I was watching a movie and I was watching someone edit something which is like their dream and it's got a mad soundtrack on top, suddenly that looks like an awesome scene and you're like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And it makes all the difference.
Well, that's why like it started, which I think we were talking about, like I started doing content, and which is something I've never done. I'll just put the artwork up and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding real joy out of, I suppose, taking it to another cinematic level and finding quotes out of movies and stuff like that to put at the start that sort of resonate with the song and the vibe of the song. So the stuff I've been putting up is mainly just edits. And that's where I'm just finding songs that I really love and finding a way to pretty much flip them.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard. And some people will laugh at me and go, that's quite a simple thing. But yeah, it's quite simple if you want to do it basic. But the songs that I'm trying to flip aren't your conventional radio tracks or in the Hottest 100. These are songs like the first one was a country music track. I love country. So it's like, how do I then flip a country song into a lo-fi hip hop beat? It's extremely hard. Like the sounds need to be right. They need to encapsulate the person's tone of voice and what they're talking about. The creative possibilities are endless. And sometimes it can be, there's beauty in simplicity. So sometimes it's like, I don't need a lot. Do you know what I mean?
100%, man. And I guess this is a beautiful part about the creative process, which is, I guess, initially why people do it is they want the freedom to be able to create something of their own with their own decisions.
100%.
But then on the flip side is as soon as you're given that freedom, decision fatigue can kick in massively where it's like, oh, well, now I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do?
Well, and it's where you start. Like I've had a lot of people say to me over the years, like, where do you actually start? Do you start with the beat, like the drums? Do you start with the melodies? And I'm like, I just hear something and it just that's the one.
Yeah. Do you have a system? Do you have a systematic way that you approach creating something?
Not really. It's like it's in a lot of waves. When I first started doing it, I was very hungry for success. And so for me, it was very regimented. Like when I started DJing, I bought 2 vinyl turntables and a mixer. It wasn't a club setup, but it was a decent setup. And I said to myself, the next 3 months, for 3 hours every day for the next 3 months, I'm just going to practice. So and I just kept doing that. And it became like an obsession. And then once I got my head around the fundamentals and played a couple club gigs, which was brand new to me because I'd never used a Pioneer setup ever. The first time I ever did was the first ever gig I ever played. Everything was I watched tutorials.
So you were doing everything on your laptop?
No, I still had decks, but I just had the 2 vinyls and the mixer. Sorry. And I do use a program. I use Serato, like that's, which is funny because it's a whole nother story, but it used to be frowned upon to use a laptop DJing. To play gigs. So it was just frowned upon. Like when I was younger and a mate of mine, and we used to do gigs, like when I say gigs, I don't mean like clubs and stuff. I mean, we might do an 18th and a 21st or whatever it was. And I'd have people come up to me and like genuinely showing aggression, being like, "You're not a fucking real DJ." I'm like, "Man, I'm paid to be here. Like you're here because you like half know the person. Like I'm actually like paid to be here."
Because you're not spinning on vinyl.
No, not because I wasn't using. So like you can use your USBs.
Yeah.
And what that does is when you put your USBs in, it's pretty much the same thing you're doing in front of you, except they're not overlapped.
Yeah.
So it was just put the USBs in and it would show the waveform of the track and the waveform of the track. And you sort of, you have your headphones on, the typical DJ thing like that. And you'd find the first noise or click or whatever you could find in the track, and then you'd cue it, and then that would be your starting point, and you'd wait for the right time in the other track. But on a laptop, it's very accessible. You could see it all lapping over. You knew that there was 30 seconds left, and the intro on this was 30 seconds.
Because it's the same layout, right?
Yeah.
Like on the laptop, you've got essentially the decks. You've got everything there. It's
yeah,
the same layout.
It's the same layout. It just you can be a little bit more creative on a laptop. But yeah, people used to come up with like aggression, man. I'm like, dude, just enjoy the party. Like
they need to see the decks.
Yeah, it's like you know, like you won't get. And even I think we did one club gig, my mate and I, and it was at like this like shitty ass place, but they were trying to build themselves up. They had these few big name like house sort of DJs coming to play. Yeah, and so we got to know the promoter. And he's like, yeah, come do it. So we rocked up, and we'd never used Pioneer before, but we had our controller. That's what they are. That's what I use in my videos. It's just a controller now, and our laptop. And we set it up, and they were like, "What the fuck are these guys doing?" And then the main room where all the people were going to see these main artists, we were playing like absolute heaters in our little side room. Everyone left and came into us, and then they cut us off. And that was my first exposure to the not like I suppose clubs. And now I look back at it, being a bit older, and I'm like, it was just a jealousy thing. And if it wasn't a jealousy thing, it was an ego thing by them, not us. We were just there to play good music, and we just wanted to enjoy ourselves. Yeah. But yeah, it's just wild how times have changed. Probably gone off track a little bit. I couldn't remember what the question was, but like it's funny how I look back now. Because I haven't spun in a while. Like I did a private, not a private gig, but did a show for an MC who I really respect. Shout out Matty Craig. Unreal.
Shout out.
Yeah, he's unreal, man. Like, and he's just a really good dude, really humble, and does a lot for the scene, the hip hop scene here. But it's just funny when I look back. I look at the people playing now, and it's so normal, especially in hip hop and even house music and everything, for DJs to rock up and hook up their laptop, even if they're not just using it for the library, it's still more acceptable now. And I look and I just think how funny it was that go back.
Yeah, when is this?
Like I started doing them when I was maybe like 18, 19. So like, what's that? It's like 2010. So like in the space of like 10 years, so that would have been from 2010 to when I sort of started. Oh no, it would have been probably less. I think 2018 I started doing the whole DJ thing properly. in 8 years, how quickly people have just like shut their mouth and dealt with it.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I see people DJing, like so many people have their laptops out.
Yeah.
Just like as standard practice.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's starting to get, as people need to realize, as music or anything grows, things get better. It's no different to like athletes. So there's, people always go, oh, the greatest of all time, the GOAT. There is no GOAT, because there's going to be someone better in 10 years' time. You're never going to have like the greatest of all time. Like, people talk about, could be cricket, and they're like, oh, this batsman made this many runs. I'm like, yeah, but he was fucking facing guys who had just had like 16 stubbies the morning of, you know what I mean? Like that's the difference. Like they've been on the cans all morning, and then like he's gone out to, and no discredit to them at the time, but how much times have changed.
Don Bradman just slugging it out.
just slapping them, and like that stuff just blows my mind when people just can't, especially when it comes to new technologies and everything. People just can't accept that the times are changing. I think there's certain aspects in life the times have changed too far, but when it comes to that creative thing, people always like, I guarantee, you heard it here first. Like in 10, 15 years time, the most famous artist in the world is probably just going to be someone who's sitting on their laptop.
Yeah,
who do you know
knows,
what I mean?
Man? Yeah.
And it's like, but who gives a shit?
I reckon there's going to be like, I don't know, if I was a DJ, I would love to have just some sort of like force field sort of thing that's around me that I can just like grab onto.
100%. Yeah, we got to look at guys like there's like Fred again, who just like, he just does the finger drumming. Like,
yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's harder than sitting there and trying to make a beat or anything. That's live music. It's like someone playing a guitar and who can get up and like in front of 100,000 people and just like shred. And you're like,
yeah.
Do you know? But it would never sound identical every time they do it. There's always going to be some little imperfection or something that makes it beautiful in that moment.
Of course.
But I do think as times change, we are going to see a fair bit of change in. We only got to look at like we were talking about earlier with people blowing up overnight. Like these things, it used to be if you're a DJ or a producer, you would take your CD or your cassette to a radio station and like almost beg the radio DJ to play your stuff. Whereas now it's so accessible to everyone. I think it.
Do you like that? Do you like that it's this accessible now?
I think back then there was probably more beauty in the struggle. And that's why I think I appreciate old music a lot more, because they really, not saying people don't work hard now, but I feel like you had to work even harder then. Do you know? So like it was very rewarding to have that then come to you.
I guess there's a lot more gatekeepers, right? Like
but there still is. Even now. Like back then they were the radio DJs, they were the club promoters, they were all those back in the day who used to be like, I don't know them, I'm not playing them, but I'll play my best mate who sounds like shit. Whereas I find that still happens a lot now.
Yeah.
Like we still, especially.
Because it's always going to happen, right?
Always going to happen.
Yeah.
And in the urban culture, it's massive.
Well, is it a need to know sort of basis? Like it's having the network is.
Well, yes, it is, and I've started to realize from a lot of reflection that it is about the team you have around you, and anyone who says, "Oh, but like if I just make it for me," and that's therapeutic and that's beautiful, but a lot of those people that I hear who are these famous people who go, "Oh, just make it for yourself and do this," and that's what I do a lot of that. Like
that's the Rick Rubin sort of idea, right?
but it's like how long does that last? Just making it for yourself before you sort of just banging your head against the wall. Do you know what I mean? But it's like kind of Groundhog Day kind of vibe.
Yeah, like how do you feel about that? When I've heard that idea or method come up, and I think I heard Rick Rubin talk about it the most.
Yeah,
where, yeah, he was saying in the end, the only person you can really know who likes it or not is you. So you make something for yourself to the best of your ability as opposed to try and create something for the people because they don't know what they want. Like when it comes to your creative process, are you trying to make stuff for other people and what they would like, or are you trying to make it specifically for yourself?
No, I want to share it. I want people to hear it. And it's not because I need validation. I can give a fuck what anyone thinks, and that's just the honest truth. I do it because for me personally, and I've done it for quite a while now, there's nothing more lonely than sitting in a studio or a home studio, a room or whatever, and making music and not being able to share it with everyone. And I look at it in a way that, especially I'll go first with, especially if you're a beat maker or producer, and you don't go out a lot, you don't network with a lot of people, and trying to find, like sometimes I make stuff and I'm like, this would sound amazing with someone singing on it who sounds like this, but I don't have the time to go out and spend Thursday to Sunday in the CBD and find people to do that. Like that was me when I was a bit younger. I was out all the time, but so there's that aspect, but there's also, I've never seen someone put music up, like release music, and then they've got 10 streams and put it up and been like, I make this for myself. What an amazing 10 streams. It's always when they crack like 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, and it's like, I just do this for me, and I'm so happy that you guys are and like it as well. Do you know what I mean? Because no one really puts it up and goes like, fuck yeah, I got one stream. Thanks to that one guy who gave me that stream. No one does it because that's a certain level of.
It's a good point.
It's a certain level of like vulnerability, like I do. To be honest, a lot of the stuff I put up is because I actually get sick of going into my files app and playing them. Yeah. I just want them on Spotify so I can listen to them.
Yeah.
And because I think that the product that I'm delivering is a good product. And if you do want to do it well, you've almost got to, which is something I'm working on now, it's almost like it has to be a certain aspect of a business. You have to you got to market your product. The days of word of mouth, they don't happen anymore.
Well, that's the hard thing with, and it's a part that I'm really interested in. I've grown up in a family of artists and been surrounded by artists my whole life, cool. and had a lot of conversations with artists, right? And listening to a lot of people wanting to, what's the right way to say this? Like wanting to purely just be a creator. You know, all you do is create, and if you create something that's good enough, you don't need to do anything else. People are just going to come to you, and will automatically blow you up. Is the perception, right? Like you don't need to market yourself, you don't need to push it out there. But then oftentimes, like the stark reality is like if you're not fighting for yourself, who's going to do it? Like you got to put it in front of people, yeah?
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, like I was saying, I just used to put the artwork up and hope for the best. And I've slowly come to realize through discussions with people who I respect and I think do it really well, that no one's going to hear your stuff anymore unless there's a narrative behind your music. So
the personality.
100%. So you need to, like, you only ever found all that stuff off from like magazines, radio interviews. There were no podcasts back then. It was just like, well, we've got John Smith into the radio station. How are you, John? And then he would talk about him and his life and where the inspiration came from for them. Now that sort of is slowly becoming obsolete, and stuff like this, like talking podcasts, and like videos, like reels, like people just boom. It's so easy now to send a reel. Like, whereas even go back to days, even when you had, before you had internet on like your phones, it used to be like you get home, you'd be in, like there was a whole process. You get home, put your school bag down, you have something to eat, you jump on MSN, no one's there. So you'd hop back off MSN, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, I better do like a little bit of my homework. So you do a little bit and then you'd be like, oh, get back on there. And then you just sit there and you just talk shit and you'd send links to each other. So But you had to wait to that time of day, night, whatever it was, weekend to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Now you're walking from where we are now to your car. You can send like 50 reels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so accessible for everyone. And especially, and as generations, newer generations are coming through, I think they don't understand when we're talking about beauty and the struggle. They don't understand, like, that's not a struggle sitting on MSM, but we used to have to do that. Now they can just do whatever they want. They've got it at their fingertips. Do you know what I mean? So there's people want stuff now. It's always been like supply demand, but now I think it's exceeded that.
100%.
So you need to start feeding people and force feeding people content of what you do and able to make a presence. Like a good voice doesn't do it anymore, or a good guitarist or a good DJ. That doesn't cut anymore. It does for certain ones that blew up before this time, but like prior to that, after that, it's all about like what you can feed people.
For sure, man. Like it's the whole package. And obviously there's some people who they do just blow up overnight. They do just have a good voice, and for whatever reason that works for them. Yeah. But it seems to me that the general vibe is that the reality is, like, if you are a creator, if you are an artist, you have to embrace the whole presence. Yeah. Like you have to be able to put yourself out there and express who you are, because I guess one of the reasons why I like seeing about people's lives is, other than just the art that they produce, is it makes the art for me so much more impactful. Yeah, you know, like if I'm listening to a track, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool, but then I'm like, oh, what's this person do on the day to day? Like, what does it look like to live this life? Yeah. Like what kind of person do you have to be able to create a track like this? And that feeds into the dream of, you know, there's a lot of people, and especially me, I like watching, for example, surfers, you know. Yeah, cool. I'm a shit surfer. Yeah. And I'm never going to be a good surfer, but I love watching their videos, and I love watching the lifestyle. It's for a brief moment, you get to kind of dream about it, you know. It's cool.
Yeah, we get to live it for a little bit.
You get to live it for a second. And that's the same with music and other people's social presence. Yep. You get to try on a new hat and be like, what does that life look like? Does it look cool? Because a lot of people might want to go down that path, right?
Yeah, and I think and there can be a lot of, I think, misconceptions too with wanting to, like, you hear something and you're like, I want that to be me. You know, like,
yeah.
It's
a slippery slope, right?
100% it is. Like, I think the fine line, there was a point there where I did DJ and I still believe it, like, that's the one thing in my life and music is, like, I'm fucking very good at. And that's not being cocky. That's just knowing oneself and knowing what you enjoy, what brings you and I think that's because it brings me joy and purpose that I know I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So the hard bit is then I look at some other people and I'm like, you know, oh man, like he must be killing it as a producer. He got this many million streams, this and that. But you don't know what he's doing in the background. Like, I'm quite content being at home with my wife and my 2 kids. The only thing that is missing is doing music every day, because, you know, like everyone else, you got to work, you got to pay this and that. So I try not to fantasize like that. That's sort of what I had to stop doing. And when we're talking about like the egos and I was DJing for it, it got to a point where, like, I knew I was good and I started getting bitter towards other people in the scene for getting certain gigs that I was like, I should be getting that. Like, I'm way better than you and you're getting this. And that's when we fall back to what we were talking about before with, it is a lot at times about who you know and not what you know. And I think the only thing that isn't about who you know and it's about what you know is, like, when it comes to sport. Because no matter who you know, if you're shit at sport, you know, either the public are going to, like, drive you out, or the criticism that's going to come is going to drive you out. Like, it can only last for so long.
Yeah, it is a hard one with that, right? And you're bringing up so many thoughts to me right now. I really like this topic because yeah, it is a slippery slope when on one side, when it comes to artists, you want to be able to stay true to yourself and be as pure as possible and create the purest form of whatever it is that you have inside you. But maybe that purest form isn't the most clickbaity shit that you've got going on, right? So then when it comes to like creating content, creating reels, it's like, well, there's an algorithm behind that, like you get people engaged in the first 1 second and you can start changing everything you do slightly purely for engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess to a certain point that's good, but if it takes away too much from the, like the original product of what you're trying to create, then in that sense, you've kind of just sold out. Like for some people it works. If it's purely commerce and you're like, I just need to make cash, I don't give a fuck, then I guess you would tailor everything purely for clicks, views, retention, getting people
100%.
On your page, just like you're a marketing agency, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing that like for me, it's like if the perfect scenario for me would be like a ranch. And I just live off, I have like my gate's 20 fucking kilometers from my house. No one can get to me. Yeah. And I'm just there with like my two, like I said, my family, my 2 kids and my wife. And then I'll have like some people come and like mates of mine who do music and we just do that every day. It's like, that's my work. That's my 8 hours a day. I'm just sitting in there and it might be 10, might be 12, could be 2. But just to be able to have that freedom, to be able to do that and not drift too far away from the quality time with family and stuff, because the hardest thing is now I look back and I go, before I had a family, how much time I wasted.
Yeah.
And you don't think it at the time. You're like, oh, man, I'm 21, do whatever I want. I'm 18, I'm bulletproof. It's like now, like I got a mate who's had a daughter. She's maybe like 18 months old. And he's a wonderful creative, like very good on the camera. He's a great MC, a writer, beat maker. Like he's just one of those guys who's sort of got it all. And we were talking the other day. We do a fair bit of stuff together, and he said to me, he's like, I really didn't appreciate how much time we had when we were younger. And I was like, yeah, man. Like all those times where like I had a mate who used to live up the street from me and it became like, it was like a religion. We'd like finish school, either go to his or go to mine, and we'd play FIFA, man, for like ridiculous amounts of time. And and now I look at it and I'm like, if I could take that like 12 hours of FIFA back, even if it was half that time, the same amount of time each week, and then make up for that with like music, I'd be so content. Like I'd probably be so much further than I am now.
You don't know what you got until it's gone.
100%. Right? But then it's also like the content I'm bringing out now is true to myself. So the lo-fi stuff started to feel like it was a little bit repetitive and was getting quite just the same. Like I could sit there and I'd just be like, yeah, put this here and then, yeah, I'll add that there and cool. Lo-fi. Now it's like the stuff that I genuinely, not that I don't genuinely enjoy lo-fi, but the stuff that I genuinely enjoy is the stuff that I will, and that I'm starting to bring out. So it's still captures my sound. It's really soulful. It's really soothing, but it's also very upbeat and can have people moving. And I think now I'm being quite comfortable with who I am, because for a lot of years I was never comfortable. Always thought there would be something greater and sooner, but never really worked that hard towards getting to there.
Do you mean in terms of like just operating with some sort of expectation that shit's just going to work out?
Yeah, well, I think when you're like being younger, I was really good at sport, played a lot of sport, just one of those people who could naturally pick up, especially when it came to ball sports. I was just someone who naturally could just do it, you know, but like say like footy. I didn't start playing footy till I was like 13. I always played soccer, and I was good at that. I got a family history of people being really good at soccer or football. Some people might get a bit annoyed that you call it soccer, but yeah, football, English football, I suppose.
All good.
So like I had a family history, you know, like had my grandfather played Premier League.
Really?
Yeah, played for Fulham in like Premier League.
No shit.
Yeah, and then I had Like my dad and my uncles and all that played like state level. My uncle got picked for Australia. So all this stuff, there was like this expectation playing sport that I always thought I was going to make it, but I didn't really. I look back now and I'm like, I just didn't have that drive. Like footy, even like started playing footy, and then they were like, you could really go somewhere. The coach I used to have was a great coach, phenomenal guy, and he's just like, you could really go somewhere, blah, blah, but you got to do a preseason. Like I was the type of guy I'd be like, nah, fuck, I'm done with sport, mate. I'm not doing it anymore. And then I'd be there on match day, game one, hadn't run, hadn't done anything, but just expected that would get me somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like that would get me somewhere.
Yeah.
Not put in the hard yards. Whereas a guy I played footy with who just retired this year, played AFL, and I'd get home from like a nightclub when I was like 19 or whatever, 18, and I'd be like walking in the door at like 8 in.the.morning on a Sunday, and he'd be running up my street with a footy in his hand. And that's the difference, is like there's people who really want to work hard for it. And now that's sort of after a lot of reflection and sitting back and being like, what do I genuinely want out of life? Like some people want, and to be honest, still don't know. I know what that looks like. Like we're saying, like you fantasize about what you want, but I suppose it's like what you're not like changing, you're choosing. So now I'm like, well, what can I change to sort of get to that point? So I'll start like more music. I used to be the type of person I would step back and not do music for like 6 months. And then I'd be like to my partner, hey, the next 3 weeks, I'm doing every night music.
Gonna smash it.
Yeah, and it's like it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
especially now with kids, it's not sustainable at all. So I think it's more about it's not like it's just progression, not perfection, and just really chipping away at it, but making sure I don't dodge or miss out on any of those moments in life as well.
Of course. There's something to be said for consistency, right? Like
100%.
Like that chipping away and slowly building your presence and just continuously putting stuff out, even if it isn't that like overnight success kind of feeling. That probably for most people is how it actually pays off in the end. But we just hear about that one person who put out that one video, or they put out that one song and they blew up for whatever reason. But 99% of most people, it's just like that consistent slow grind under the radar for years and years and years until slowly something happens, right?
Well, and the thing is, and it's perspective too, like looking at where you are currently right now. Like sort of the journey of music. Like I remember cracking 100 monthly listeners on Spotify, and I was like, amazing. Like I'm killing it.
Let's go.
I didn't do it when I did one, like I was saying before. We didn't promote that, but I promoted the 100, and I was just like, but like now, just from being consistent, when we talk about consistency, last year I was like, I've got like 1,000 to 1,500 beats on my laptop that no one's ever heard. And that's no bullshit. Like that's just, I've got them just sitting there, unused music.
Why? Why are they not released?
Because you go through a phase at the start where you're really worried about what people are going to think of what you're making. And you don't want some people go like, oh, like I've had it heaps, like artists go, oh, I love constructive criticism. Like tell me what you genuinely think. And then I'll be like, I don't like it. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you just asked me, like you've asked me what I think, and I've told you my actual thoughts. I can tell by your reaction we're not going to work well.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. So there's just a lot of music sitting there. And also I've had a lot of people over the years or over the span who have reached out, and I semi-know them. I don't know them that well, or they've been put on to me or whatever. And they'll be like, I want some beats from you. Cool. All right. How many do you want? Look, what I'll do is I'll send you a pack. Yeah, cool. And so I send it to them. And then after I send the pack, I'm like, this is the cost. Because I used to do everything for free, and it just doesn't work, because it's not that it's for the money. It's just you're putting a lot of time and effort into something you genuinely want to do as a career. So it's like you're not going to go, some people do, but you're not going to go, say you want to be a doctor, you're not going to go to university and then medical school. And then at the end of it, like not want to be rewarded for your hard work. So it was kind of, it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not doing it for free anymore. Well, you don't want to finish your degree, be 100, 200, something $1,000 in debt. And then they're like, we're hiring you, but you're not getting paid.
Because that's the reality, right? Like regardless of what it is, in your case, like you're investing time, you're investing actual money, buying all of your gear and then your energy. So that is a lot. That is a lot.
100%
that you're investing.
And when I even with DJing, when I first started, my first lot of gigs were I did them for free. I used to spin on a Sunday at this event. It's like an R&B soulful event. I got to know the guy who was running it, and I said to him, I'll do it for free, but like because I'm just starting out, even though I knew, it's like, again, no ego, no cockiness, but I knew I was better than 95% of the club DJs because I used to go there and listen to him and be like, nah, yeah, he's really good, nah. And I did that way before I even DJ'd, you know. But I used to do it for free. And then it was just like my agreement was as long as I get like free drinks and if mates come, just give them a couple drinks, you know. Like that's our deal. And I did that for a long time. Like I'm talking 6 hours on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And then it just come back and bite you in the face.
So how do you go I don't know how specific you want to get, up to you, but how do you go about taking your art and chucking a price on it and then enforcing that price for people? Like I think so many people fucking struggle with that.
Yeah, it's really hard. You got to know your worth. And I'm a big believer on relationships with people. So a lot of the artists I work with, we have a very good relationship. I get to know them on a personal level. They know me. I check in on them. It's not just something that I just use them to push my music out. Like I'll check in on them. If I see they haven't been releasing as much or putting as much stuff up, I'm like, what's going on? You still doing it? Like, you know, you're too talented not to. And it's not kissing ass so that I can, it's just because I genuinely like these people and I believe in them. And I think that's been lost a lot. So a lot of the projects that I do, when I have people coming on, I just say to them, I'll cover the mix and mastering fees. I'll cover the art. I'm doing the artwork. I'll cover all the promo. I'll pay for all that. All you've got to do, we'll go 50-50 in the royalty split. All you got to do is just record yourself and I'll do the rest. Now, some people go like, I'm happy doing the mixing and mastering because they like using that, their own sound. But a lot of the time I do that because I know that it's more than some money. You know, like it's more because it's like it's a real personal experience. It's quite a journey because I've sat there for so long to curate this pack, and now I know you guys are going to sit there for so long and like write to this music, and I find it's such a beautiful thing. But when people who I don't really know come to me, I think it's more just seeing that they're trying to be a business or they're trying to, you know, and also I've spent a lot of money on stuff to make my music, whether it's like subscriptions to this, whether it's audio software, whether it's recording accessories, software, whatever it may be. At some point, it starts going the other way. Like it outweighs itself, and it's like, well, I'm not going to go through life being, you know, I'm not going to look back and go, shit, 50 grand I spent on all that stuff, and I saw nothing for it. You've got to find the balance. And I think with new people who you don't really know, even though they might be great people, you'll see the real them when you put a price tag on something.
Yeah.
So the people that and the regulars that I use for projects or I work with or give them beat, I don't charge nothing because again, it's that personal journey. Like I hope for their sake that the track we do goes somewhere, not for my sake, because that's the hard bit about being a producer is your music just sounds.
Yeah.
There's no story to it. Like I can tell you the story of why I made this or why I made that and what I was feeling at that time, but there's no one telling you a story. There's no one, you know, whether it's an MC or a singer. As soon as you put a voice on it, it's like boom. So I really hope that the people I work with, and I think they have the talent to blow up, and like one of them at the moment's who's from overseas. He's signed a record deal and he's working on that in the background. And like, I'm not sitting there rubbing my hands together going, this is us, this is me, and retire next year. I'm going, I hope he takes it as far as I see him going with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the price thing, it's just being firm. It's not giving a fuck what the person says. Like,
because you have to be prepared to walk away with not doing it and no money to be able to enforce your price, right?
100%. And I find that you put a value on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta know where your line is to be like, yeah, I'm not doing it, man. Yeah. It's all good, but just I'm not.
But sometimes it could be like there's some people who are just content with giving music to people because they're going to pay for it. If an artist asks me for music, I actually listen to them. Excuse me.
All good.
I actually listen to them. And if I know that I don't vibe with their music, do you know what I mean? Like I'll send them something that's completely left field so that they don't buy anything. It's just because it's nothing against them. I don't vibe with it. Like putting my name to that.
Yeah.
Like you hear a lot of tradesmen say that, like I wouldn't put my name to that. Like I work in construction and it's like you say, like, I wouldn't put my name to it. It's like, well, I'm the same with what I make. Yeah. I'm not putting my name to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like walk away, you know?
Yeah.
Cut your losses.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's a fine line, right? Because obviously you want, I guess any artist or most artists, I can imagine what you want is to be able to get enough money so you can buy yourself enough time so you can keep doing the thing that you want to do, right? Like that's the goal and also the minimum standard. Like, hey, if I can just get enough money so I can keep doing this, fucking oath.
Well, that's the thing is too is like for me, years ago, it was a lot about that's your passion, that's what you want to do. Now having kids. Having two, I think which we've spoken about, like, so Soul, who's my oldest, he's just turned 3. He's got a rare genetic disorder where there's few cases of it in medical literature, but like and that's over history. But what he's got the whole, like, it's like someone went and bought like one of those cake mixers that's got everything in it and just like dumped it, you know.
Got it all.
He got it all. Poor thing. So for me and I know how much my wife does being at home with him. And because of his condition, he's got a lot of light sensitivity. So summer and stuff, you're pretty much trapped indoors, 4 walls, day in, day out. And he, you know, needs eye drops every hour and just stuff like that. Like I see how much it's so, like I just see how much she does. And my only way of being able to be home and help out more, because it's hard when you work, you know, a job and long hours, and like we live quite a distance from society, I suppose. No, we just live in like the regional Vic, but just to be able to have more time at home, because you don't know how much time, like how precious it is, like we're talking about before. You don't realize how precious it is, and trying to cram everything into a Saturday, Sunday just doesn't cut it with me.
Yeah.
I want more time at home. I want the freedom, the financial freedom. So that's why the music, for me, I'm more hungry than ever to do it. And it's not saying that like putting it all on him either. I don't want him to grow up and bear the weight of like my father went so hard at what he did for me. No. It's for us. So I can spend more time at home, you know, because I've seen my dad. My dad still works now, you know. And he's like 60 or something. And I'm like, man, he's at the point, he's like telling me about work and stuff. And I'm just like, man, you know what you need to do? Go do what you want to do. You just worked since you're like 15. But the thing that holds him back, I think, is that old school mentality of like, you got a cushy job and benefits are good. And even if it's shit, you just deal with it. It's like, no, fuck that, man. Like you've done your hard yards, you know, go and do what you want to do. And that's like the music stuff for me. And that's why the content, like what we're talking about, I find it very hard to do that content. Whereas I can sit here and have this conversation. Put me in front of 2,000 people, I'll speak. Put a camera behind me or beside me, like doing music. It's like, it's just sort of a bit of like stage fright.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, well, that small inconvenience or feeling, or that emotion that I'm feeling outweighs. The reward of that outweighs that. So if I get to wake up every morning, not at fucking 4 o'clock, 3:45 in the morning like I do now, if I can wake up and like when my kids wake up and I can cook them, he loves banana pancakes at the moment. So it's like if I can make him banana pancakes and a smoothie and then go do the gym and do all that type of stuff, I can do that every day. Then it like you've got to get you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because otherwise I don't want to be sitting there in 20 years going, oh, I'm still in construction and, I'm still doing the same stuff. And I'll still tell you how much I don't enjoy it. And I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
So you have to, you've got to, like I said, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And does that require, I guess in your case, when you think about it, does that require you at this point in time having to just burn the candles at every end to be able to push your passion over the line?
Yeah,
right?
It does.
Because it's you don't have enough. I think the reality is, right, when you're working, I don't have kids, so I can't speak to how much time and energy and attention that takes. I'm sure it's unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
But the reality is there isn't enough time to be able to, unless you are like literally an overnight success or something, there isn't enough time to be able to take a craft and do it consistently to a really high level without pushing the fuck out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty lucky. Like my wife's amazing.
Shout out, what a legend.
Yeah, she is. She's an absolute legend. But no, she is. She's a beautiful woman. She's just the heart she's got and the patience and the perseverance and the time she puts into both. Like we've just had our second, Atlas is his name. He's coming up to 3 months old. But just the time she's put in, especially to Soul when it was really difficult. And she is amazing what she's done. And she's just as amazing with me. So it's like, she said to me back into the last year, and I was like, I was pretty perked up because of the organic growth I'd done in my music and everything. And I was like, I want to keep this momentum. She just said to me, she goes, this is the only thing apart from me and the kids that bring you pure joy. So why not just fucking give it everything? So what do you got to lose? If you got to do 12 months of hard work, what do you got to lose?
Got to cherish that, hey, because so many people wouldn't have that kind of person in their life to be able to buy them that space.
And the thing is, like especially in the industry that I'm in, you get a lot of guys who, there's women too, but a lot of guys they're very male, prominent industry, like they're very full of males, and it's just like you hear them talk, and it's like the ball and chain. Fucking kids are doing it. And don't get me wrong, man. Sometimes I look at my kids and I'm like, you're not listening. And, we're trying the whole aware parenting thing and trying to be like on the same level as them and let them be free with their emotions and stuff. But it's hard. Yeah. It's hard when someone like, when someone takes their nappy off and rolls around on the floor and it's like, you've just done a shit, man. Like, just get up. Like, let me clean you first, bro. And then you can do your thing, and like, It's hard, but like to have a partner who is just so supportive is amazing because, like I said, like the industry that I'm in, you hear it a lot. Like some people don't want to be at home with their wife and kids, and especially in the way I've done my career, and I've travelled and I've worked FIFO and I've been in the mines. I've done all that stuff. You hear it a lot.
Yeah. Sounds like a drag, doesn't it, right? For a lot of guys.
And it's that it's like with having kids. Like my mate who's got a couple mates do, but one of my closest mates, he with his daughter, and I just said to him, like, he goes, talking about kids and stuff, and I just was like, it's the most amazing thing you'll ever do, man, is have a kid. It's the most hardest thing you'll ever do. It's the most amazing. The hard thing out of it, the whole thing, is the relationship. That's the hard shit because you're both tired. No matter how much you go, like, it's not a competition, you're going to feel like it's a competition at some point.
Well, you want to be upholding your side of things, right?
Yeah, and then if you love your partner like I do, you just don't feel like you're ever doing enough. Like my I adjust everything in my life to work around the family. So like I used to go to the gym in the afternoon and now I go at fucking 4 a.m. in the morning. It's shit. It's shit. But I do it because I can get more time with the family.
Yeah.
And then it's like the work I do. So like you go gym from, say I'll be there at like maybe 4:15. 4 is probably been a bit like, you know, exaggerating. But say 4:15 in the morning and then like I'll be in the change room getting ready for work at the gym at 5:15, in the car at 5:30. And then I've driven to site because like I'm in a leadership position for what I do in civil construction. I'll be at site at 6:30 and then I could be there till, you know, 3:30 is knock off. I'm usually there till at least 4. Then for me, where I'm working now is an hour from home, so then I drive home. By the time I get home, if I'm home at 5, I've been up for 13 hours.
Mm.
So 13 hours already. There's 11 more hours left. Now, ideally, 8 of those would be sleep and 3 hours with the kids.
Does that ever happen?
No, ever. And then if I do, it just doesn't feel like I'm working hard enough. Feels like you're not doing enough. Not that my wife ever makes me feel like that. That's all in my own head.
Of course.
She's amazing. She's always like, you know, you provide, you do this and that. But it's very fucking hard to sustain that. And then like, so most days I'll run off like 5 hours sleep, maybe 6. Because I'm like, okay, well, if I've got, 11 hours left, then like, okay, say 2 hours with the kids, say they'll be in bed around 7:30. And then by the time we get them to sleep, because that's a whole different ballgame when you're with kids. Like bedtime could be 7, the kid doesn't fall asleep till 8. It's fucking, it can be soul crushing.
All over the place.
It can be soul crushing at the end of the day, right? It can be a bit all chaotic. So then by the time you do that, and then you might go out and wash the dishes and you might just clean up a little bit. You look at the time, it's like 8:30. It's like, I should be going to bed, but I need to try and also do this music stuff. So then I'll go and do that. And the next thing, I'm in the zone. You know what it would be like with doing this. You're in the zone. And you look at the time and I'm like, shit, it's 11:30. I've got to be up in 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Then I hop into bed and then the alarm goes off and it's just like Groundhog Day. And it's fucking hard. And the candle gets burned at both ends a lot. And it's hard not to get into that mentality of, fuck it, I don't want to do it anymore. It's very easy to become complacent and content with what you're doing. And we've touched on it before in a previous conversation where I just don't understand how people become content with, and I think it's noble to work the 9 to 5 and provide. Some people are happy with that, but I just don't see how people become content with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's no disrespect to them whatsoever. You're doing something amazing and very noble. But how do you just become content? So like you might be on this planet for 80 years and say 20 of it, you were young and you didn't whatever, but you're telling me and then the last say 10, so that's 30. So you're telling me for 50 years, you're happy just to get up at the same time every day, go and do the same job every day, come home and do the same routine every day and go to bed and do that day in, day out. And then you get 2 days of a week. If you're not working, like construction, we work most Saturdays. You're content doing that for 50 years. Like,
yeah, like, is it I don't know if it's a considered choice for most people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess like there's a lot of different people, right, they get different things out of their work and their life, but you know, probably not every person has like something in them like you that wants to create music and it's like, fuck, this is the life that I want to live, you know?
Well, but I think it's just like not putting in, there's a really shit narrative that gets put on when you have kids. And it's that all my dreams went out the window when I had kids. So, no, they didn't. No fucking way they did. It is hard, but if you really want a dream to become a reality, you've really got to work. And like 10 years down the track, it still might not be working.
It's a gamble, right? Because you're
100%.
You're playing with that risk of like, fuck, I could spend the next 10 years spending all my time trying to pick this thing up off the ground and it doesn't work. And I think that's what scares the shit out of people. That's what scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, well, it scares me too. Like I'm like, what if I, especially with like Soul and what he's gone through and having to go through that and having some real hairy moments with, he's had like numerous surgeries, like major surgeries, you know? And so to go through all that shit and then be like, is this the best use of my time to be doing the music?
Yeah.
That's really hard to juggle that. Especially when I'm really locked in and I'm sitting in the room at home doing it and I can hear him at the door kicking the door. So I found that I incorporate him into the music. So
get him on the decks.
100%. So that's what I do. Okay, let's do it. Now, do you think he doesn't know how to DJ? And it kills me. He presses the cue button and it gets to right where it's going to drop. And he fucking presses it again. And I just listen to the same loop over and over, but it's beautiful because then he gets to step into that world.
I really think that's a way, not from a parental perspective, but from a child's perspective. Like I got dragged around through my parents' vocations and passions and their art as I was young. They didn't stop doing, no way were they going to stop doing their art simply to just look after me. And once again, this is just their circumstance. And so I just got dragged through it all, you know, like, and I've loved that. In hindsight, I absolutely loved that my parents didn't necessarily stop their lives just for me. Yeah. I really liked that they kept feeding their passions and feeding their desires, and I got to be a part of it and I got to watch it.
Yeah, like that's amazing, man.
Maybe you'll probably find someone else who goes, I'm so fucking happy that my parents stopped doing all that shit and focused purely on me.
Yeah.
I'm sure that exists and everything in between. But for me personally, I loved watching my parents have passion.
Oh, 100%. And like I was lucky. I had a really good upbringing. Like my parents, like they're still married, which is a blessing in itself. Because my kids now get to grow up and have nan and pop and same with my wife. Like her parents are beautiful people, like their family. I love them to death. But yeah, my parents, I suppose, probably because I've seen it. Like they had, it was a bit harder for mum. She was an orphan, so she didn't really have that connection with someone to really be by her side and guide her. I suppose she had it pretty rough. And like my dad, like his choice when he was like 15 was like, you either go to school or you get a fucking job. And at the time it was like, well, if I get a job, I can buy like the motorbike I want. I can buy the car I want. I can go do cool shit, you know?
For sure.
So they did that. But I think you can't let that then be like, I've given everything to you kids, because like
no way.
Yeah.
It's not the kids.
So that's what I'm saying. Like because I know how much. I actually read something the other day, might have been today even, that said incorporating your kids into something might slow you down, but maybe that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
Because we're so go. So like, yeah, it might slow down my progression on a certain track for an hour to have Soul stand there and play the same fucking 8 bars for an hour. But it lets me sit back and appreciate that he's only 3 and he's doing this and
you're doing it together.
We're doing it together, and the smile on his face and the things he comes up with and laughs about and lyrics he starts making up. And I'm like, how are you even 3? Like, it feels like you've been here for like 15 years and you're 3 years old, man, you know? But yeah, I think you just can't, which I think maybe my parents may have done is like fall back into that trap of like, well, I'm going to give everything to my kids and that's going to be my purpose. And I'm extremely grateful. I'll never tell them, like I said, I had a wonderful upbringing. We moved around a fair bit. I got to see like different areas and different, like we lived in New Zealand for a while. I got to see like that beautiful part of the world, and I got to experience all that stuff. But I've also seen the struggle, and which you don't appreciate till you probably become a parent or get older, and and you start seeing things and you realize how hard it must have been at times for them. But yeah, I just think you just can't. I don't know. I just don't see it in my head to be able to be like, well, I'm going to quit everything and dedicate it to my kids, because then it feels like you're giving up something that brings you joy, and then it's slowly going to become. What am I trying to say? Like that becomes your narrative. Then, like, I stopped doing it because of you. It's like, no, you stop. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, you stop doing it because you didn't have the desire to want to do it or passion as much anymore. Or maybe you just weren't good at managing your time, or maybe it's a hard one. It's no disrespect to any parent. Some, like I said, it's like working a 9 to 5. Some people are just happy putting all their time and energy into their kids. But you can't make it like the narrative, because then the kid grows up and has that little bit of feeling.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it with, and this is just purely anecdotal, what I've seen with certain people. So once again, not a general picture of what happens with 100%. Everybody, but I've seen it damage a lot of people that I've spoken to when they get it put on them by their parents of that story of, well, I gave everything up for you. Like, now the pressure's on you. How dare you waste it? Like, how dare you not appreciate it? And it's like, well, it wasn't the kid's choice.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault of what parents chose to do, I guess, in the end.
Well, I think, like, I reckon there's times where I can feel a little bit of that. And again, like, it's nothing against my parents. They did the best with what they had then. Like, we can only get better at parenting now because of the resources we have. But like back then, like, I still remember even being in year 12, and it was like they were selecting the school captains and shit. Yeah. And it was like, even to the point where like teachers were like, oh, well, you're going to get it. And I'm like, I don't fucking want it. I want to be like sports captain. I want to do some shit like that. You know what I mean? I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to have to stand up there and fucking I don't want to have to be up there and be all prim and proper and stuff like that. I just want to be me. And I remember going home and it was like, oh, I think I'm going to do sports captain, or I'm going to do whatever it's this. It's like, well, no, you're doing school captain. That's what you should be doing. Now I look back at it, I'm like, I think, like, I hated year 12, and I think it's because of that. And I look back and I'm like, no one's hired me, or I haven't met someone in my journey who's been like, we'll get along, man. You were school captain. It's like, they don't give a fuck. Like, no one gives a shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something but it's that thing of, it's that older generation.
Yeah.
Of, like, it might help you with, like, maybe getting into a certain school or something. They'll look at it as for, like, leadership qualities. Yeah. And I get that. But it's like, I'm a chippy man. Like, I work in construction. I'm covered in, like, we do civil. I'm covered in fucking concrete and sawdust and shit 90% of the time. And, like, no one's gone like, you know what, Jake, don't pour that slab, mate. You were school captain. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter, you know. And I think that you can put a bit too much pressure on your kids, and it can stem from, like, I've given you everything, you know. Whereas, like, it's like, for me, like. And I remember growing up too, people used to say things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know, man. I thought I was going to be a physio, you know, or like I used to watch CSI. I was like, yeah, I'll go into a crime scene and I'll fucking, you know, I'll UV light it and there'll be blood and jizz everywhere and shit. Like, that's just what I thought I was going to do. But
yeah,
you can't put that pressure on kids either. It's
hard because I guess, like, there's like, you know more than me. I'll find out maybe at some point if I have kids, but I can imagine some kids, they would need all the pushing in the world to be able to get there, and some you just can't tell them what to do, and everywhere in between. Like, how you gauge that for your child when the time is right.
Yeah,
like,
but it's even just like I see Soul now, and like I've always played this game with him. It's like, let's just make up words. So I've always done things to try and get him to use his brain creatively. But not put pressure on it. Not be like, you have to go in there and DJ, or you have to go in there and do music. Like, he goes to a music school, and I've never seen a kid more content with who he is. And he's 3. Man, like, we'll go to this music school, we do one-on-one classes, and he walks in, and the guy will be like, you know what, Sol? I'm thinking that we do like a game like this today. And he's just like, no, not doing it. He's like, what do you want to do then? He goes, maybe get his favorite thing's like a glockenspiel. He's like, maybe get the glockenspiel. So the guy gets the glockenspiel, plays it for about 2 minutes, and he's like, nah, not feeling it. The guy's like, well, what if we play this game where we go, he goes, And then I'll be sitting there, he'll come up and go, Dad, I don't want to do that. I said, well, you don't have to. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And he'll go, I just want to play with the boom whackers. They're like these tubes that make different sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just plays with them. 45 minutes. And first time I went, I was like, pissing my money up the wall here. Like, I could do this at home. But then I started to realize like it's a new environment for him. It's like a creative space. The guy who runs it has done like a wonderful job of setting it up. And you get home and then it's the talk about like, oh, we did this with Phil. Phil's the guy's name. He's like, we did this with Phil. It's like, cool. Like we did do that. That was awesome. Or like, remember this song we learned, or the song that he was playing when we were doing this activity or whatever. But it's just like trying to I think now that we understand kids more too, is not understand them fully, but we understand a lot more about them and what works for them.
For sure. Sure. Yeah.
Like even if Soul didn't have what he's got, like Atlas is a clean bill of health and Soul's they're like yin and yang. They're the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, yeah? But even if Soul didn't have what he got, I'd still homeschool him.
Yeah.
Because he can cram 4 hours of schoolwork. 8 hours into 4.
Yeah.
So then the other 4, what do you want to do? Oh, today I want to water the plants. All right, well, how about we water them and we start to understand why they need watering?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? It's something cool, you know? And like all this
live life.
100%.
So can we build out some, just to, because we're referencing your kids a bit, and I want to build out some context for everybody listening, man, just to, because the conversation that we had prior to having doing this podcast, when I was going to speak to you on the phone, man, I was like, I'm just going to talk to this guy about music, making beats, and I don't know, music and life. And then the conversation that we had blew me away, man. It was something that I wasn't.
It was a good convo, actually.
It was a good conversation. We're going to have it right now.